to come down. You said you were going to be the backup, and we can win us, 5, 6, 7 in a row. Come on, man, let's do it. And whatever. I'm exaggerating the conversation, but the point being, Pat Riley thought about it, came close to making a change, and then he sat LeBron and those guys down and said, listen, Spo's a good coach. He's my coach. He's going to be your coach. You guys are just going to have to play with them. You guys are going to have to figure it out together because we're not going to make a change. And then they did. Remember, there was the issue where he shouldered him coming out of the huddle and wasn't looking at him during the timeouts, wasn't communicating with the coach. All the same stuff that we're seeing with David Blatt. When LeBron decides that he does not respect you as his coach, he does not hide that from anybody. And that always used to drive me nuts, whether it was Spo, Mike Brown, whatever, was watching that man sit in the huddle, biting his nails, staring off into space, paying zero attention to what's being talked about in the huddle. And I'm always like, man, how is that okay? But it is, because nobody's going to say anything. But I think what the Cavs are missing is a Pat Riley in that circumstance. Whether it's Gilbert, Griffin, do those guys have the testicular fortitude to look at LeBron and say, hey, I know that you can walk away if you want, but we're going to stick it out with Coach Blatt. We think he can be a good coach, and we're going to give him our support. Because if you do that and LeBron doesn't like it, he can walk away, and I don't know if the Cavs have anybody willing to play bad guy like Pat Riley was.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, Jerry, is not only do the Cavaliers lack a Pat Riley, I think that they also lack a Dwayne Wade as well. I mean, if there's anything that could help hold LeBron accountable, it's a player who's actually playing on the court, too.
That he respects. Yes.
Right, and the other thing with Dwayne Wade is, I mean, he is really just such a great person, Dwayne Wade. He was such a good friend to LeBron even before he came to Miami. The halftime of the Miami game where, they were saying that Dwayne Wade didn't make any pitches to LeBron. He kind of just made the decision for himself. Well, there is not a personality anywhere on this Cavaliers roster. It's not going to be Mike Miller. It's not James Jones. It's not any of those older guys that are, going to confront LeBron and say, hey, you got to be the guy to steer this ship in the right direction. And I think that if nothing else, LeBron was right on the nose in saying that this whole thing with the Cavaliers is going to be a little bit more difficult than in Miami, because Miami was a much older team, a much wiser team. They had done some winning in the past. Yeah. Cavs don't have any of that working for them, and this really is all on LeBron to try to get this right.
I got to tell you, man, I mean, you said it earlier in this conversation, and it is on him, and I think that he knows that. And maybe, hey, listen, he's a diva. Even when he's at his best, he's a diva. So I get that some of this is going to be the frustration that comes with this, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I can only justify that so much, even looking at the hubris that comes with being a big NBA star and superstar and all of that stuff, man. Kevin Love, I keep circling back to that, because as much as I love the consistent double-double. I love a guy that'll gobble up rebounds, and it's easy to go, ooh, make a vine out of that 90-foot, pass from under the rim. But that defense, and again, that was the one thing when we made that trade, I go back to saying, man, I know Andrew Wiggins is not going to match Kevin Love, perhaps performance-wise, right off the bat, and you're trying to win a championship now, but that boy can play defense, and this team doesn't have anybody who plays. I always say this, when you got a team, especially when you got a team full of 3 stars, and for that Miami comparison, let's use Miami for a second. Even if you want to say LeBron James, he did play some okay defense in Miami. I think it was, again, because he had to, because you can't look left at Bosh and right at Wade, and then you're not holding up your end of the defense. So he was accountable to other players on the court, whereas if LeBron and Dion don't like it, well, that's just too bad for them, because LeBron's going to play how he wants to play. He didn't play that way with Wade and Bosh. But look defensively. Look at that big 3. You're talking about 2 cats that like to play defense. You're talking about natural defense. defensive players. You know, Chris Bosh loved to get nasty, and that was really what he evolved his game down into doing more of that stuff, because you can't have a bunch of superstars hogging the ball and taking all the shots. But when you do have a team with that, you have to counter it with a bunch of Anderson Varejãos. There has to be guys that do nothing but play defense and stay out of the spotlight and don't take a bunch of shots to counter off what we've seen with the big three, especially with Kevin Love here. That's why losing Varejão, I mean, that can't hurt the Cavs even any more than it did, because you've literally lost, no offense to anybody else, there are guys that do play some defense, but you've lost the one guy who always plays defense. I mean, him and Tristan Thompson are your two guaranteed, we're going to go out there and give you some effort on the defensive end every night, no matter what. You know, Sean Marion, for all his reputation, he is not the Sean Marion that I expected to see. He's clearly on that 1 year too far deal. He still can give you a few things, but that's nowhere near what you thought you were going to get out of him. But now Cavs have nobody to step in defensively here. Kevin Love being an absolute void, as you brought it up at the beginning of things here, man. I mean, now with Varejão out of the way, I don't even know if the Cavs were to trade their trade exception, trade first round pick, whatever. I think they're now one trade too short to get back to where they want to be anyway, because they already needed to make a deal, bring in a two-guard, do something like that anyway. Now you got to make another deal here. And because clearly, I get you. You can say, Vashawn, you can throw out that name Haywood all you want. Haywood, Amundsen, Kirk, Jones. Clearly, those guys don't interest the Cavaliers at all, because none of those guys play very much basketball. So that's the other thing. And I go back to the whole at the beginning of this season. I remember people telling me how everybody lines up to play with LeBron James, and I would always say, well, nobody lined up to play with him last time. Well, it's because he hadn't won yet. Now everybody lines up to play with him. And I look at those Miami teams, and I'm like, well, who besides Mike Miller lined up to play with him in Miami? Because everybody else was either already on the Heat or got drafted by the Heat. My point is, it's not as many people line up as you think. Look at this Cavs team. For all the talk of how many people were going to come in here and want to play with LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love and this great team, no, the bench is short. They're going on a freaking 7-8 man rotation at this point. They don't trust the guys that they have on the bench. How can a team with 3 stars and all these championship aspirations have such a shortage of players wanting to come play for them? Meanwhile, you know, Josh Smith can't go to Houston fast enough. And I'm not saying I wanted Josh Smith. I'm just saying that is a myth that players line up to come play with LeBron James.
Yeah, it really is. I really don't know how Blatt is going to be able to pull this off, to try to address not one but probably two pretty obvious needs that the Cavaliers have. One for a defensive big, and two for another guard to work in the rotation. Because this rotation with Miller and Della Vedova and especially AJ Price, that's not going to work.
No.
I did a little bit of math last night after the Detroit game, and Brandon Jennings, who shot lights out in the third quarter, he made like 3 threes in a row. He outscored all the Cavaliers guards last night, including all of those guys. I mean, that's never a good thing. So, you know, and it's not like the Cavaliers have as many great assets as they did a year ago when they picked up Dang and Hawes. Yes, they do have 3 first-round picks. That's pretty rare for a team that's in a position like the Cavaliers. But,
move them all right now,
but Jerry, the problem with those picks is when you look at the turnover of this roster from last year to this year, this went from one of the youngest teams in the NBA to one of the oldest teams in the NBA. I mean, you've got players that have a very short leash in terms of, their tenure in the NBA. I mean, Miller is 34, James is in his mid-30s, Haywood is up there, Marion is up there. So those draft picks become less expendable as you go forward, because you have to get, young talent eventually, if you want to be able to stabilize a team. And teams just really are not as willing in today's market to deal bigs. I actually talked with Sam Amico from Fox Sports Ohio about this. there might be rumored to be plenty of bigs on the trade market. You can go on and on and on. The list is pretty long. But are they really available? I mean, people like to make up, rumors just for something to talk about, like we had kind of hit on before, just for something to talk about. But a lot of these bigs, if you actually go to the GM of the team, make a phone call and say, hey, is X player available? And say, well, probably not, because bigs are hard to come by in this league. I'm not seeing many scenarios here where Blatt not only can address two of those issues, but I think he's going to have a hard time addressing one of them, to be honest with you.
No, I agree with you there for sure. And again, I don't know, because as you said, not only that, you brought up, by the way, they can't use all of the limited assets that they do have, because you cannot trade your own first-round pick back-to-back years. So that asset in the future is tradable. It's not for the next year, because you can't do that right now because of the Stepien rule. You cannot trade back-to-back of your own first-round picks. But, yeah, look at the difference. And I know you'll say, well, they got LeBron and Kevin Love. That's great. But look at the asset difference between this time last year and now. Now, obviously, you build them up so that you can do this. But this was the downside of that trade for Kevin Love. You can tell me, Anthony Bennett's a bust and Andrew Wiggins is just a rookie and all. That's fine. But when you give up the equivalent of 3 first-round draft picks, all recent, I mean, that is a lot of potential and future talent and assets given up for one player. And again, the question, and not only all of that, I mean, it's so funny because 2 days ago they were saying David Blatt was a genius for benching Kevin Love in the fourth quarter so that the Cavs could barely hang on and beat the Orlando Magic the other night. And the next day he's a doofus that LeBron James is trying to run out of town. So that'll show you how quickly the narrative in the media changes. But Kevin Love can say all the right things all he wants. It does make you wonder what he really did feel about sitting out the fourth quarter of that game. Now, I would hope that he really would just be glad that the team won the game, but I don't know. Is he that guy, or did he not like it? Or does he know that he can't play defense? And it's just, I don't know, man. I'm curious if these guys think because they stand within 3 feet of somebody, if that's actually construed as playing defense or not. But, Kevin Love's, as you said, it's a void. It's a black hole. I watched him Olay guys to the hoop after the Cavs worked their way back into the game against Miami the other day on Christmas. And then, boom, here comes Dwayne Wade. I think I watched Kevin Love sidestep out of the way on one of them and just go, here, Mr. Wade, allow me to make this easier for you.
Boy, yeah, I mean...
And I like Kevin Love, but he don't play no defense either. I'll be honest with you, of the big three, Kyrie Irving has been playing better defense than any of the other two.
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair to say. That's very fair to say. And the other thing with Love, too, is, I mean, of course you expect his numbers to go down in a unit where he's either the second or third option. But when you look at his numbers, they're not down. They're way down. I mean, last year his average was at 26 a game. Now he's down to 17. That's almost a 10-point difference. That's a very significant difference. That's the definition of winning and losing right there, whether you're going to get those 10 extra points or not a game. Rebounds, of course, those are down. Free throw percentage is down a little bit. The three-point shooting of Kevin Love is really what concerned me, because last night he went 1 for 7, and Blatt, again, was asked, because they got the shots that they wanted, they just didn't knock them down. Well, Kevin Love missed 6 of those shots and only made 1. He's only shooting the 3 ball at a 33% clip this year. And last year, he shot the lights out of the ball at 2.5 a game. Now he's only making 1.5 a game. That's a pretty significant difference right there. So if your guy that you had spent all of these investments in isn't doing what you really brought him here to do, then something is wrong. They've really got to straighten this out with Kevin Love first, and then hopefully things will start to fall into place a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of work. And again, listen, this team still has a lot of season left. And look, this season wasn't the be all end all anyway, man. I think anybody that wasn't really fooling